Hello, my dear friends, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 31st of January 2025. Today, we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. During the previous 24 hours, the most important updates came from the Andreyiva fortified area direction. As you can see, there are many icons in this area, indicating that the Russians have most likely begun their final assault operation. It is highly probable that within a day, 2 days, or at most a week, this entire direction will collapse, and the Russians will take control of every single settlement, including Dakhel, Constantinople, and Andreyiva. If this area falls, it is uncertain where exactly the Ukrainians will be able to stop the Russian advance, as this is the last relatively reliable defense belt of the armed forces of Ukraine on the way to the settlements of Zaporizhzhia and Gulpo. Now, let's discuss in detail what has been happening throughout the day, starting with the Constantinople direction. According to available information, the Russians launched an offensive operation in this area with the objective of taking control of the farms located in the southeastern part of the settlement. This information comes from several very reliable pro-Russian sources. As of now, there are no significant changes on the ground. The Ukrainians have created extensive trenches and fortifications around the southern part of the settlement, meaning it will take some time before the Russians can seize these territories completely. However, if the Russians succeed in capturing the southern part of Constantinople as a result of this southern offensive operation, it will pose a significant problem for the armed forces of Ukraine. Further north, we received another update published by the Russian side. In a video, it appears that the Ukrainians attempted to restore or rebuild another pontoon bridge in the area, likely as a means of evacuating soldiers and assets from Dasna. However, as soon as the Ukrainians completed the bridge, the Russians destroyed it once again. This is probably the second or third video showing similar attempts in the same area. Moving further east, we have received many interesting details and updates from this territory. Russian forces have managed to improve their positions between the settlements of Vak and D. The Russians are attacking with a broad frontline advance from the So-Yal River in a northern, northwestern, and northeastern direction. We can observe movements of Russian vehicles and motorcycles, and it appears that the Ukrainians are struggling to counter these advances effectively. When the Russians landed in this area, the Ukrainians deployed several drones and launched FPV attacks against them. Based on this video evidence, we have adjusted the map and marked everything north of So-Yal and Yant as being under Russian control. Comparing maps, we see the situation as it stood at the end of the 30th of January 2025 versus the beginning of the 31st of January 2025. From this video, it is evident that the Russians are attempting to advance toward Wakli, improve their positions, and get as close as possible to the N15 road. They are also seeking to attack the Ukrainians from behind in the area of Dam. In the Dutch area, the Ukrainians are trying to stay as close as possible to the northwestern part because they understand that sooner or later, they will either receive an order to retreat or be forced to make their own decision to fall back. The longer they remain, the fewer chances they have to survive. The Ukrainians also realize that there are no viable evacuation routes for their troops. Most likely, during the day, Ukrainian forces attempted several evacuations from the Dashna area, but everything moving toward Dashna was detected and destroyed by Russian forces. This is another episode of destroyed vehicles somewhere along the N15 road. As a result, the area has effectively turned into a cauldron, and Ukrainian forces are suffering heavy losses. Now, let's discuss the final section, the northern direction, where the Russians continue their offensive toward Andreyiva. Throughout the day, we have received multiple updates from different sources indicating that the Russians managed to enter the settlement of Andreyiva from the east, and according to various sources, the complex network of fortifications was also captured by Russian forces. Shortly before we began making this video, a significant 2-minute video was published by the 4th SMOT Rifle Brigade of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation. This video depicts numerous events from the past 2 to 3 days, showcasing how Russian forces attacked this region, stormed company strongholds in the eastern part of the settlement, withdrew Ukrainian positions within the settlement, destroyed Ukrainian strongholds and trenches, and cleared them. In the final segment of the video, artillery and FPV drone strikes can be seen targeting the northwestern part of the settlement, an area Ukrainians still use to bring reinforcements to the Andreyiva fortified area. This is a highly significant battle, and currently, Russian forces are attacking Ukrainian positions on this side of the Red Line. If Russian forces secure full control over this part of Andreyiva, the distance between their positions in the southern and northern parts of this area would be less than 3 kilometers, effectively creating a cauldron. Situation in Nadka. In the past 24 hours, Russian forces significantly improved their positions. Just yesterday, pro-Ukrainian sources published footage of Ukrainian forces counterattacking Russian positions in the settlement of Nadka. Based on this video on January 13th, we adjusted the frontline map. Let's revisit this footage. We see Ukrainian troops advancing toward a tree line in an attempt to regain control over lost positions. However, by the end of January 31st, Russian forces had already established control over 50% of Nadka, with intense clashes still ongoing. It is highly likely that Russian forces will continue their offensive tomorrow. If the village of Nadka falls, Russian forces will likely begin an offensive in the northern direction to attack Novaya Alexandrovka from the rear. Essentially, only 2 villages remain on the Russian-controlled side of the Solona River, making their capture a strategic priority. Additionally, from Nadka, Russian forces are expected to continue their advance southwestward to attack settlements such as Pryina from the north, Troit from the north, and Zaporizhia. Despite military aid and reinforcements from Western countries, Ukrainian forces have been unable to stabilize the front line or slow Russian advances. Every passing day brings the situation closer to total collapse for the Ukrainian defense. Pakros direction. In this sector, there is currently an operational pause. We have not received updates from this area for the past 3 days following Russia's capture of Kot and its facilities, as well as the eastern part of Vashna. Russian forces have ceased further advances, and the reason remains unclear. Perhaps the Russians have achieved their main objectives, such as cutting off railway lines between the city of Pakros and the Ukrainian mainland. If this was the primary goal, the offensive may have been to secure the northeastern flank before continuing the advance into the Dnipro region. Alternatively, this could be a prelude to a major offensive toward Pakros itself. Regardless, Russian forces are currently regrouping, and we are unlikely to see major developments in this sector for the next 10 days. However, once reorganization is complete, advances will likely resume. Eastern flank of Pakros. During the past 24 hours, Ukrainian sources released footage of Russian attacks in this region. The exact location of these movements remains uncertain, as Ukrainian videos are restricted in geographic scope. It is unclear whether Russian forces have managed to improve their positions, but the footage confirms large-scale Russian movements involving a convoy of military vehicles advancing through Venka toward the north or northeast. Additional updates in the coming days should provide clarity on Russian gains in this region. Tet direction, the most critical front. As for the city of Tet, no new information has emerged from its northern part. Over the past 5 days, Ukrainian sources have reported numerous counterattacks against Russian positions around the city's outskirts. These counterattacks likely allowed Ukrainian forces to reclaim some sections of the city. However, as of January 31st, there is a noticeable absence of reports regarding further Ukrainian offensives. More importantly, Russian forces have shifted their primary activity to the southern and southwestern sectors of Tet. According to our information, in the last 24 hours, Russian forces have significantly intensified their attacks in this region. That's it, dear viewers. Thank you for watching. Stay informed and take care of yourself. See you next time.